When was the last time you took a leap of faith, trusting that everything is going to work out? Do you crave growth, or are you merely content with the status quo? If you want more out of your life, out of your career, and out of your relationships, you are in the right place. Take the leap and discover how to create a life by design rather than living it by default. Real success starts with you. Now here's your host, Colleen Biggs.
All right, listeners, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Take the Leap. I am your host, Colleen Biggs, and we are on episode 191. We are getting so close to 200. You know, in our previous podcast, Lead Up for Women, Speak Up to Lead Up, we had gotten up to about 175 episodes, and then we rebranded and started Take the Leap. And so I don't think I've ever gotten to 200 episodes. This is going to be a very exciting time when we reach 200 episodes, which means we've had over 200 guests on the show. And each one of those guests have shared an expertise in an area that is helping you design your life the way that you want your life to be. I was just at a vision party last night. There were 4 speakers in a row. They all talked about vision and how important it is to have a vision, how important it is to get your vision on paper. And that was why they were doing vision boards. How important it is to have goals that have timelines to them and that are specific. So if you've not done this for yourself ever, that's the number one thing that you should be doing for elevated productivity is having a goal. So now you know every single day what you need to do to work toward that goal. And why I love that is so that I don't waste my time, my money, or my energy. And I've got Kyle VanDuser here with us today. He is going to be helping us in the area. Okay, this is really interesting because when he told me he was the author of the book Blue Collar Catholicism, I was like, bro, back up. We got to talk about this. But this man is a true patron. I have to tell you that I love everything about his approach, his heart. He's working with nonprofits. There's so much about him that I enjoy. And when I was introduced to him from my brother from another mother, Steve Romano, I said, you've got to be on my podcast because I want people that are like you, Kyle, that are doing so much greatness in the world to share your message on this platform. So we're going to get to Kyle in just a minute, so don't go anywhere. And before we do, I do want to thank today's sponsor of today's show, Ally Spine Center. What sets our office apart from other offices is our focus and expertise in treating degenerative spinal conditions, including disc disease, bulging herniated disc, spinal stenosis, neuropathy, sciatica pain, tingling and numbness in the arms, hands, feet, and legs, as well as severe and chronic neck pain and headaches. I literally went to them with chronic neck pain and they completely cured me. So I love it because they specialize in corrective care, like actually correcting it so it doesn't happen anymore. And they don't just treat the symptoms with physical medicine modalities. So in a lot of cases, they use pre and post images that help determine structural improvement of the spine. That's what we all need if that's your issue. So if you are suffering from any of that or know of anyone that is, you do not need to be in the Arizona area to be able to reach out and make connection with Ally Spine Center. You can call them at 480-809-4700 or visit them at allyspinecenter.com. And if you live in Georgia or North Carolina or Ohio or Seattle, Washington, they can get you in touch with a corrective care center in your area that can help you with that. So I highly recommend you utilize them as a resource for that. And we want to thank them for being a sponsor of today's show. All right, let's get to Kyle. Kyle VanDuser is the founder and executive director of Cypress Island Enterprises and the author of Blue Collar Catholicism. He's married to his beautiful wife. I love that he wrote that, Kayla. And together they have 3 young daughters. They live in a 2.5-acre homestead farm in Southwest Florida. By the way, I didn't know there were farms in Florida, so I just learned that. Check. And the lessons he learned while preparing for their farm led to the inspiration for his book. He graduated from, is that Ave Maria University?
Yeah, Ave Maria.
Is that how you say it? Ave Maria University? I should have checked with you first. With a Bachelor of Arts in Business and is working on his master's degree in theology at Ave Maria University. So he's coached multiple sports. He's been in youth ministry, in politics. Kyle's also been a character skills, life skills, and leadership skills coach for the last 15 years. I've never heard it's stated as character skills. So Kyle, welcome to today's show.
Thank you so much, Colleen. It's a blessing to be here. I'm excited for this show. It's been great getting to know you.
So much fun, my friend. So much fun. Okay, a character skills.
Yeah.
So those are skills that somebody creates their character. Tell me about that. Lay the foundation there for us.
Yeah, I think in today's world, I mean, everything is so public, but a character is who you are when no one's looking. And so sometimes a lot of people will pretend to be one thing outside. And so a lot of us, unfortunately, because of the society that we're in today, have to learn actually who are we when no one's looking and how do we make that person better? Because no one's accountable to that. When it's no one's looking, then you're not accountable. So it's like you can be whoever you want. Your character can be whoever you want. And so a lot of us have to develop the discipline and the skills to be the person we want to be, even when no one's looking. And that's who we truly are. We can put on a facade or some kind of, front to try to trick people into thinking we're successful or we're popular or we're energetic. But who we are when no one's looking, when it's just us, that's who we truly are. And how do we make that person the best possible person we can be? So it takes a little bit of skills and training and also accountability to do that. So I've been doing that for a while, mostly in the middle school, high school, and college age realms, but it's kind of fallen over into even my friends, my community, and even some people that are older and more experienced than I am, who are like, man, I've kind of lost myself along the way. And so just trying to help them get back to grassroots of who they are. So
I love that you're working with the younger generation because that's really where it starts. And I feel like the pandemic really did a number on them, and they're really lost these days, that they weren't prepared for that disconnect and that isolation. And it really damaged a lot of children. And I don't know if they have the skills or understand what it takes to come out of that, or what happened to them, or why they feel that way, or validating it's okay that they feel that way. I've always had this visual. So come with me on this little journey for a second, Kyle. I've always had this visual that if I was a drone and I could fly over houses and they were all glass, what would I see?
Yeah.
Right. Can you imagine what people do behind closed doors? Now, I have to say, I kind of feel a little boring because I am exactly the same person and have the same energy and do everything exactly the same in private as I do in public. Why?
Right.
Because I just wouldn't be, I've always been that person that says, I can't lie because it's exhausting, because I told a lie when I was younger about a dog that was my grandparents, and the dog jumped out of my hands and then he kind of landed and hurt his little foot. And then I felt so bad because I loved this little dog. And then everyone was like, what happened to Fluffy's leg? And I just stayed quiet. And I was like, I can't tell them it was me, but it wasn't my fault. The dog just jumped out of my hands. But I was so sick to my stomach. I was throwing up. I couldn't eat dinner that night. And I think that experience from that point forward taught me, like, lying is really hard. Lying makes me feel bad. Lying, you can't remember what you said. So like you have to say another lie for that lie. And I was just like, I can't do that. I can't lie. I have to be truthful. It's the only way I choose to live my life, which means I kind of have to show up, or I do show up exactly who I am everywhere. But I know, like you're saying, people don't do that. And I find that to be a heavy burden, that's got to be hard to
big time
exert yourself to be somebody different that you're not. That's got to waste a lot of energy and be exhausting at times.
Right. Well, it's funny, like we talk about it all the time, like when coaching and when you're coaching certain sports, you talk about stuff, and a lot of people use the term easy, but a lot of stuff isn't easy. It's simple. The steps are simple, but it's not easy to do those simple steps. But I think being your authentic self is the easiest thing you can do. It's just not simple. It's the opposite. And it's like doing the fundamental things for a sport to get better at your position or your craft or whatever it is. It's simple, but it's not easy because the environment and culture that we're in right now doesn't make it easy. But to be your authentic self, it literally is the easiest thing you can do because it's who you were created to be. It's literally just being and existing, which is the only thing you don't have to try to do. but it's not simple because, again, because of the culture and the environment that we're in today. And that's changed throughout time. But right now, just with this, with the pandemic, with social media, I mean, those are all amazing instances that are like groundbreaking things that have happened, but you were born for such a time as this. And so you need to be able to be authentic in that space. Otherwise, you're not fulfilling your purpose, because you were actually born. You were born, unfortunately, and this, a lot of kids don't want to hear this today. They were born to go through the pandemic. They were born to be alive during social media. Now, what are you doing with it? You were specifically born to do that and to be here at this time. How are you fulfilling your greatest purpose, which is being born during this time? And so a lot of people don't do that.
I'm just not sure. I always question, like, God, why didn't you just put me down in a pioneer dress? I think I would have been a little better at that time.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are heading back that way too. It's like, where's the simpler time? You know, where's the Anne of Green Gables
25
book
years
or
ago,
something?
you know, was simpler.
Yeah.
I remember a job I started back in 2000, and we literally had a room. It was called a mail room. And we had just all this mail for all of the business owners that we worked with. And you would just put mail in them and then put it all in a package and mail it out once a week to them. Right. Crazy. Crazy that, you know, the internet and email just started where you could email stuff. It's so crazy to think that that wasn't that long ago, like 24 years ago. But
well, yeah, it's like I was just doing my calendar today for our alumni communications, and I'm sending out probably about 40 mass emails this year, and I'm sending 2 letters. It's like, oh, that's it. Like, it's like,
I haven't checked the mail at my house, and my husband checks the mail only because one of our businesses is still based on, you know, accounting departments distributing checks, and that's just how it works for how one of our companies is paid. So he's always going to the mailbox, right, for those types of things. But, you know, I love to send cards still. I'm one of those people that love to appreciate people and send cards and gifts and small little things that just let them know I'm thinking of them. And even and I will say in today's world, that is so rare. So they love that even more when they get it. It makes a bigger impression than it used to in the past, when the only way to communicate was really through letters. So let's get to this Blue Collar Catholicism, because that was a birth really of this, you working on this farm. So give us the story. Why did you and your wife move to this farm? Tell us kind of how that all happened, because you have a very interesting story in how this was all built.
Yeah, so without getting too much into the weeds, I mean, we started doing some research on, you know, nutrition, on simpler living, on a bunch of different stuff. But what happened was the pandemic kind of shocked me into a different mindset, which now I call the blue collar mentality. And what I realized was during the pandemic, I am reliant on a lot of people I've never met, a lot of industries I don't even pay attention to. Because things were shut down, and all of a sudden these things were not available to me. And I realized, wow, I'm very reliant for bare sustenance on these industries, and I'm not in control of those industries, you know? And so I realized, I was like, okay, if it were another pandemic that absolutely shut down the world for good, what would I need to survive? And so my wife and I started planning and praying about what would we need? Well, we need food. And that's pretty much, we could survive off of that, and then everything else can kind of figure itself out. But then I got to thinking, I'm like, wow, I don't think, and this is no disrespect to anybody, I'm in a white collar job. I don't think I can think of a white collar job that if it went away tomorrow, we would suffer as a society. You know, they all provide a service, and they're amazing things. There are amazing industries out there. But if it weren't for the blue collar type mentality, working, you know, dirty with your hands, getting stuff, putting seeds in the ground and growing plants for us to eat, we literally wouldn't physically survive. So it kind of spurred this mentality in me to, okay, what can I do to be less reliant on other people, provide for my family, keep them safe, and do what I'm called to do, which is lead them towards a more sustainable existence. And then I started to think about, well, if I had a blue collar mentality with my faith, then no one would starve spiritually that's around me. And so in the same way that I was reliant on so many people, a lot of people are reliant on me and my experience, my life choices, my life, you know, learnings and the lessons that I've learned and the position that I've been put in to spiritually and emotionally be fed. And so I also have to have the same blue collar mentality to feed the people around me with what I was put on this earth to do. And so what I did is I wrote the book as a challenge to everybody to do that, to look at your sphere of influence, who's relying on you for spiritual, mental, physical growth, and even like a physical growth. Maybe it is building your own farm, or maybe it's just supporting the local farm stand next year, whatever it is. But this book was really to kind of help you find your purpose, especially with your faith, and then also how to do that. So putting people in your life that keep you accountable, people in your life that mentor you, people that you're mentoring, and then building your kingdom around you and making sure that that's sustained. And so that was kind of the whole idea behind it. Was I realized that, in the face of tragedy and in the face of uncertainty, I was like, okay, something my dad always taught me was you can only complain so much before you find your part in the solution. And so people were whining and complaining about the pandemic, and I was like, no, there's something here. And eventually God, opened my eyes to what it was. And so it led me down the path to write the book and build a farm and do all kinds of crazy things in the last couple of years that I would never have done.
in every recession that happens, there are so many amazing businesses born out of that, and businesses that thrive. And then there will always be the victim mentality of businesses that forever will go away, and their only blame is that recession. Right. And that, and I remember fighting through the recession, being in a business where business owners were opening businesses, right and left. And then all of a sudden, we've got all these amazing projections, and they're paying the highest rent rates because things are going great. And then it just crashes, and it's like no one wants to spend any discretionary dollars. Everybody's freaking out. And the landlords are bleeding right and left because every single one of their tenants can't pay. And it's like, you're not, the landlord's not the only one bleeding. We're bleeding, and the customers are bleeding. So we all need to come together and find a solution for this. The banks are bleeding, right? Every single one of them down the road
start to fall.
We're having issues. So it was really about coming up with a solution that served everybody, and made that a win-win. So I just love the blue collar mentality, because you're right. And I don't think we're ever above anyone in anything that we do. It takes all of us. And when you wrote it about blue collar Catholicism, if someone is of a different religion, would they still find this book to be helpful in finding their purpose through faith and all of those actions that you have in the book that really guide them?
Yeah, so the main target of the book was Catholics. I mean, it is a call to evangelize with a blue collar mentality for Catholics. But the way that I wrote it with a couple friends of mine who aren't Catholic. They're devout Christian men, and they helped me edit it and make sure that the audience was the audience, but also that it was versatile to everybody else. And so I think that anyone who picks up the book can really get some really good structure on how to build their kingdom around them. As well as maybe some even some strategic things to actually implement in their life, to kind of get that mentality a little bit more. So I think it's kind of versatile in the way that we wrote it, because even though I'm getting my degree in theology, I always wanted to be almost like non-academic and just very like personable and relatable, without compromising the message. And so that's kind of how we approached it, and it seemed to work out once we put it all together, which was really great. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
So all the changes through the pandemic that happened for you, what does your life look like today with your beautiful wife, Kayla?
Yeah.
What is that? What does the farm look like? What have you achieved? What you wanted to achieve? How are you serving others? What does that look like?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that happened was before the pandemic. I mean, I was putting in probably 65 to 70 hours a week at the church and gym that I was running. We built a gym, a 33,000 square foot gym attached to the church so that we could outreach to more people through sports, arts and music, social experiences, all kinds of stuff. And so I was spending 65, 70 hours a week almost building those kind of pseudo businesses that were part of the church's ministry. And then when the pandemic hit, it kind of restructured my thought. Like I definitely am an energetic person. I like to work all day, every day. Even my wife's like every weekend, she's like, you can't just sit down and relax. You're either completely like vegged out, exhausted, sleeping, or you're moving. And that's kind of how I operate.
That's me too.
So
I'm
I was
either
like,
passed out
yep.
or I'm moving.
If I'm awake, I'm 0 or 100, nowhere in between. And
Same.
so
On
yeah,
or off.
so that's kind of how it is now. Now I work, a nice 40-hour week job, and I clock out, but I go home and I work on the farm, and I make sure my chickens are fed, and I make sure that the grass is cut, and I make sure that the fence is mended where it needs to be mended, and all those things. And so we're still building. We're a year into our farm now. We're still building some infrastructure to kind of strategically place the garden, and get our property ready for some cows and goats, hopefully this fall. So
I was going to say, you need goats. You don't have to cut the
yep.
grass anymore, my friend.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. So I've got one more line of fencing I have to put in, and then we'll get some goats in there, which will be really great. And then they can start to clear the land for some cows. We are part of a co-op from my cousin started in Ocala, Florida, which is in Central Florida. And Florida's actually an ag state. We've kind of lost our way a little bit, but we are an ag state originally. And I think we're starting to get back there. There's a lot of people who are building these hobby farms in Florida because the atmosphere is really good for it. And the temperature, like there's these hybrid cows that you can get that can take the heat. So a lot of people are going to it. So the days look very different now. I clock out when I need to clock out, and I go home and I spend time with my family, and I teach my daughters how to, care for the land, and why our chickens are, why it's a symbiotic relationship. We're taking care of them and we're feeding them. They're giving us eggs, for our nourishment. And then when we pick them up, we love on them, we care for them, we don't drop them, and so it's a different childhood than I had. Not better, not worse. It's just different. And it's so cool to see that, like, from someone who was born, in a very poor area of Miami and lived very city life, and then moved to Naples, which is a little bit more fancier city. Now I'm living a country life right outside the city that I grew up in, with a very, very different childhood for my kids. And so it's just really cool, and letting the kids, get dirty and just be free, and, just let them just kind of live the child freedom. It's really, really cool. And then also teaching them skills that, just not a lot of people have nowadays. And ones that I've learned in the last couple of months. Now I'm teaching my kids them as if I've, done this for years, which is really cool. So life looks really different. And it's a really cool blessing.
Yeah. There's so much that you do serving as the director of alumni relations and engagement. And yet there's so much that you do outside of that for other people and nonprofits and your service. Is that really just something that's on your heart that you feel that God's called you to do, to be of service for that?
Yeah, what I realized again right after the pandemic, I quit my job at the church. I started my business, and I started working as a consultant for nonprofits and for political campaigns. And when I did that, I realized that there's just a need that I can fulfill for other people, just kind of teaching them how to build an infrastructure of people around them. Because I think it was actually your email I got the other day, which is one of my favorite quotes, is that your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, it's a lot of nonprofits are so worried about the mission that they treat their employees terrible, or they overwork their employees on accident. And it's not, I don't think it's personal or spiteful. It's just that you get so focused on the good that you're doing, which most of them are doing such great work, that they lose sight of the people that they're actually ministering to. And so a lot of my consulting has been, hey, take a step back, care for your people so that they can care for the mission. And a lot of CEOs and executive directors have been like, oh, I've been trying to do the mission, but I have all these volunteers and these people around me to not do that. And it's that same blue collar mentality. If a farmer doesn't teach his kids, his family, his community how to build up their own, their own sustainability, then it withers, and even the wisdom goes away. So if you're not impacting the people that are actually carrying out the mission will die too. And so you really have to take care of your people, because that's your best asset. So that's kind of what we do with our consulting, is we try to teach executive directors and CEOs of nonprofits, one, how to fundraise by building relationships with their donors, not just asking them for money all the time, how to throw great events so that their donors feel appreciated, and then also, encouraged to give more, but then also taking care of their infrastructure, their people. And that's really what we do for really any nonprofit. We do it for a lot of them. And that's been a really cool thing, actually, to go on a side tangent with, like, political campaigns. political campaigns are like, yeah, you're all behind the one person who's running for whatever office they're running for, but there's so many volunteers and people underneath them that are so skilled, but they get overworked and they get run out,
Yeah.
that they start to lose the principle of the person they're running with and they're running the campaign for. And so we try to help those candidates get back to, hey, go door knock, go talk to the people. I know you want to do this show or that, so and all the glamorous, fun, fancy things. Yes, you need to do those, but you also need to go talk to your constituents. You need to go talk to the people that you're actually running for. And so it's just getting people back to people, really.
Yeah. You know, it's funny when my neighbors asked me to run for the board here in my community. It's the first board that's going to be, that we're on now, that's resident led.
Okay.
And we've been in existence for 11 years here, but they're slowly turning over the board because they're really serious about making sure the vision is preserved for the space.
Right.
And when my neighbors asked me to run, I was like, I don't think anyone knows me. They were like, everybody knows you because you volunteer everywhere in the community, and the first thing I said was, if I do this, then I'm with the people for the people, because that to me is the most important part, is they need to know they have a voice in this, and they don't feel like they've had a voice because it's been ran by a company that is overseen. Right. And so now if it's residents coming on the board, they need to know that their voice matters. And so if a neighbor texts me when something comes down, from the board or whatever it is, I'll get text messages that say, hey, can you fill me in on these details and help me understand this a little bit better? And I love that, because no one tries to attack me. They're saying, like, I want to understand, because some people are upset about it. Some people are for it. Where do you stand? And what's behind it? And I think that's important, that we're transparent and we explain those things to individuals, because anybody who is elected into a position, they're elected by the people. It's people's choice. So I think that's important to remember, that that position is about you being the choice for the people that were elected in that position. So you have a duty to the people to serve in the manner that they expect you to serve in every position you're in any corporation, politically, if you're on an HOA board, in your community, you just have a duty for that. I think it's the same for a dad or a mom. We have a duty as a parent, because we've taken on that role to raise our child and teach them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Yeah. Well, it's like the old saying, you either you're home educating either way, right? Either you're teaching your kids at home, or by not teaching them, you're teaching them that it's not important. And so it's it's the same thing with businesses. If you are pushing the mission down your employees or your volunteers' throat, and you're not actually ministering to them, then it's like you're teaching them that, okay, this mission's more important than you. And that's not going to be the best encouragement that you can get the best work and the best mission put forward.
Oh, you always have to focus on the people, and the numbers work themselves out all the time. I've seen it. But I know corporations are just flipped on that, and they're focused on the numbers, and they want the people to hit the numbers. That's all they're looking at. But the more we focus on the people, and I did that for a tiny little stint in one of the companies I worked for, and I had really been pushing, me and another individual, to create a gratitude program, because I had interviewed a whole bunch of individuals in the actual office, and they said, if someone just appreciated me more for what I did, I would work harder for less money. I don't need all this, team building and all this stuff that they're doing. It's just a waste of time. I really just want someone to say thank you.
Right.
It was that easy. And creating a gratitude program allowed everyone to voice their opinion of how they felt about other people and how appreciative they were. It changed the entire culture of the office just by that one small little act that really hardly cost any money to implement. So gratitude goes a long way.
Right. It does. Yeah, that's so true. I love that.
Yeah. Well, that was a great way to end our podcast today, Kyle. So why don't you tell everyone? I know we've got a link here for you, a Linktree link that we're going to set down there. It's going to have links to your socials. It's going to have a link to a copy of your book for Blue Collar Catholicism. Doesn't matter what religion you are. This is a book to read. I'm pulling it up on my Kindle. I've got it. And the website for you to connect with Kyle. Any last words you'd like to leave our listeners with today, Kyle?
I would just say, just keep on working for the people around you and with the people around you. That's the biggest thing. Like Colleen says, your network is your net worth. I mean, keep the people around you, because at the end of the day, they're the only thing that we can't produce on this earth, right? The people around us are the people. Like, yes, we can have kids and those are amazing as well, but you can't replace the people around you with some other, robot or something like that. That's our best asset on this earth. And so love on the people around you, care for them, and keeping a blue collar mentality in everything you do. Thank you again, Colleen, for having me.
Oh my gosh, Kyle, it was wonderful today. And all the listeners out there, remember, you're the only you that's ever been. You're the only you that's ever going to be.
That's
So
right.
what do you want your life to look like? You can pour into others around you. You can be a great person. You can show up authentically in the private times as well as in the public times, which we talked about today. Everything we talked about today was really having that attitude of authenticity and pouring into others and caring for those around you. It goes so far if you pour into others. I promise you that. So Kyle, great words of advice today. Great wisdom. Thank you so much for being with us. And to all of you, thank you again for being amazing, loyal listeners. And until next time, be you and be strong. Bye-bye for now.
We hope you enjoyed our show today, as our guests shared their secrets on designing their life by taking the necessary leaps to expand their influence and attract the right people and clients into their lives. To start these easy steps for yourself, be sure to visit www.colleenbiggs.net/freebies to download the 7 ways to increase your exposure today.